The Nexus station floated in the darkness of space like a massive diamond, reflecting the light of two golden stars. Inside its metal corridors, panic spread like wildfire. Millions of beings from dozens of different species rushed toward the docking bays, carrying whatever belongings they could grab. Children cried, parents shouted, and the air filled with the sound of fear in 100 different languages. In the center of the station, deep within the most protected chamber, 7 beings sat around a circular table. They represented the oldest and most powerful species in the known galaxy. They were the Galactic Council, and for the first time in 10,000 years they were about to die. The Azuran delegate spoke first, her voice entering the minds of the others through telepathy. Her blue skin seemed to pulse with worry. The Vrex fleet will arrive in 2 hours. Our scouts confirm 50,000 warships. We have only 12,000 vessels, and most are cargo ships hastily armed with weapons. The Lithan's representative, a towering being made of living crystal, hummed with a sound like breaking glass. We should have acted sooner. The Vrex have been conquering systems for months. We thought diplomacy would work. Diplomacy always worked before, said the Delphiri counselor, her gills fluttering with agitation. Her water-filled suit bubbled as she moved. In 10,000 years of peace, we forgot that some species only understand violence. The Sarok military commander slammed his clawed hand on the table. His scales were dark red, almost black in the dim light. Then we fight. We die with honor. The Vrex think they can intimidate us with their numbers, but we are the Council. We established order in this galaxy when their species was still crawling in mud. Noble words, the Luminari said, her energy form flickering with sadness. But nobility does not stop laser fire. Our shields will fail, our ships will burn, and the Vrex will exterminate every species that oppose them. The Kettar general stood, all 4 of his arms crossed over his broad chest. His fur was white with age, and his eyes held the wisdom of countless battles. We have sent the distress signal across the galaxy. No one has responded. Every species knows that helping us means death. The Vrex made that very clear when they destroyed the Helian homeworld. The Arborian elder, the oldest being in the room, creaked as he moved. His bark-like skin was covered in moss, and his branches swayed despite the lack of wind. Then we ensure the evacuation completes. We stay here, coordinate the departure of every civilian we can save, and we face our fate with dignity. Silence fell over the chamber. Each council member knew this was the end of an era. 10,000 years of peace, cooperation, and prosperity would end today in fire and death. A junior Azuran diplomat burst into the chamber, his young face twisted with urgency. Counselors! I may have found something in the recent contact reports. The Azuran counselor turned to him with annoyance. We do not have time for minor issues. The evacuation, There was a first contact 3 months ago, the young diplomat interrupted, his telepathic voice shaking. A species called humans, from a system called Sol. They sent a diplomatic vessel, but we were too busy to respond properly. The Kettar general growled. And how does this help us? Do they have a fleet? An army? Secret weapons? The young diplomat's face fell. No, sir. Our scans showed they have only fusion drives and kinetic weapons. Very primitive technology. Their species is young, barely 500 years into space travel. They control only their home system and a few colonies. Then why waste our time? The Sorok commander snapped. Because, the diplomat said quietly, they responded to our distress call. Every eye in the chamber turned to him. What did you say? The Arborian elder asked. Their ship just dropped out of hyperspace. 1 ship, a destroyer-class vessel. They are requesting permission to engage the Vrex fleet. The Lithan's counselor made a sound like shattering glass, the crystal equivalent of bitter laughter. 1 ship? A primitive species sends 1 ship to fight 50,000 Vrex warships? They will die in seconds. We should order them to retreat, the Delphiri said, her voice soft with pity. There is no reason for them to throw away their lives. The Azuran counselor reached out with her mind, touching the consciousness of the human ship's captain. She felt determination, cold focus, and something else, something that made her pull back in shock. It was an emotion she had not felt in thousands of years, predatory intent. Patch them through, she said quietly. Let me speak with them. The communication screen activated, showing a human woman in a dark blue uniform. Her hair was tied back tightly, and her eyes were the color of Earth's sky. Her face was calm, almost peaceful. The name on her uniform read, Captain Sarah Chen. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Nations Starship Defiance," the human said. Her voice was steady, showing no fear. "We received your distress call. Permission to engage the hostile fleet." The Azuran counselor felt tears form in her eyes. "Captain Chen, we thank you for your courage. But you must understand. The Vrex fleet consists of 50,000 warships. You are alone. Please retreat to safety. There is no shame in surviving to fight another day." Captain Chen's expression did not change. "With respect, counselor, we didn't come here to survive. We came here because you called for help. Now I have 4 minutes before the Vrex are in weapons range. I suggest you watch carefully. You might learn something new about us humans. Captain, please, Defiance out." The screen went dark. The Ketar general pulled up the tactical display. A single blip represented the human ship. It was so small compared to the Vrex fleet that the computer barely registered it. The smallest Vrex dreadnought was 20 times larger than the human destroyer. "What can one ship possibly do?" he whispered. They watched as the Defiance suddenly accelerated at speeds that should have killed any biological crew. The ship's velocity climbed to rates that made the Council's own vessels look like slow cargo haulers. "Impossible," the Lithan's counselor said. "Those acceleration rates would crush any living being. Their inertial dampeners must be far more advanced than we thought," the Sauroch commander said, leaning forward. But the Defiance was not heading toward the Vrex fleet. Instead, it raced along a perpendicular course, moving at incredible speed along the system's plane. "What is it doing?" the Delphari asked. The Vrex commander apparently wondered the same thing. His transmission, intercepted by Council sensors, was full of mocking laughter. "Ignore the small ship. It runs away like a coward. All vessels, focus on the station. We will make an example of these Council weaklings." 3 minutes remained. The Defiance suddenly released objects into space. Small metal cylinders, each no larger than a ground vehicle. 2,000 of them spread out in a precise pattern, forming a sphere around the advancing Vrex fleet. "What are those?" the Luminari asked. The Council's best scientists studied the readings. "They appear to be simple metal containers, some kind of electromagnetic generators. I do not understand their purpose." 2 minutes remained. The cylinders activated, emitting a strange energy signature that made the Council's sensors scramble to identify the pattern. 1 minute remained. The Vrex commander finally noticed something was wrong. "All ships, evasive maneuvers." "Something is our 30 seconds. The Defiance was now 100,000 kilometers away, racing at maximum speed as if fleeing the scene. 10 seconds. Captain Chen's voice came over the comm one last time, cold and professional. "Counselors, I recommend you shield your eyes. This is going to be bright." 0. The galaxy learned that sometimes the oldest weapons are the most deadly. Every cylinder detonated at once, and the Nexus station shook with the force of what came next. The flash of light was blinding even through the protective filters of the Nexus station's observation windows. Counselors and civilians alike stood frozen, watching something that should have been impossible. Each of the 2,000 cylinders had released a single projectile. They were not missiles in any conventional sense. They carried no explosives, no energy weapons, no sophisticated targeting systems. They were simply metal rods made of tungsten, each weighing 50 kilograms. But these rods were traveling at 90% the speed of light. The first Vrex dreadnought died without understanding what hit it. The tungsten rod punched through its shields as if they did not exist. The shields were designed to deflect laser fire, plasma bolts, and conventional missiles. They worked by dispersing energy or deflecting matter that moved at predictable speeds. Nothing in the Vrex arsenal moved at relativistic speeds. The rod passed through the shield, through the outer hull, through 17 decks of the massive warship, through the reactor core, and out the other side. The entry hole was only as wide as the rod itself, perhaps 20 centimeters. The exit hole was 300 meters wide. The kinetic energy released by the impact was equivalent to 100 nuclear weapons detonating simultaneously inside the ship. The dreadnought simply came apart, transformed from a 5-kilometer warship into expanding debris in less than a second, and it was not alone. 1,999 other Vrex ships experienced the same fate in the span of 3 seconds. The tungsten rods, fired from precisely calculated angles, tore through the fleet like death itself given physical form. Some ships were hit multiple times as rods punched through one vessel and continued into another. The laws of physics cared nothing for armor, shields, or military doctrine. At 90% light speed, even a small mass became an unstoppable force. The council chamber was completely silent, except for the gentle hum of the station's life support systems. Every being in the room stared at the tactical display, watching as 50,000 red blips turned gray, marking destroyed or crippled vessels. The Ket-Tar general's 4 arms hung limp at his sides. His mouth opened, but no words came out. The Lithan's counselor's crystalline form had stopped humming entirely, something that only happened in moments of extreme shock. The Sauroch commander's tail thrashed once, twice then went still. "By the ancient stars," the Arborian elder whispered, his voice like wind through dead leaves. "What have we just witnessed?" The Azuran counselor was the first to recover. Her telepathic voice touched every mind in the chamber. "The Vrex fleet is retreating. The surviving ships are entering hyperspace." "Surviving?" the Delpheri asked weakly. "How many?" "Approximately 2,000 vessels remain operational. They are fleeing in every direction. The fleet's command structure has collapsed completely." The young Azuran diplomat who had first mentioned the humans pulled up additional data. "Counselors, the calculations are staggering. The Vrex lost 48,000 ships destroyed, and another 2,000 too damaged to fight. The entire engagement lasted exactly 4 minutes from the moment the human ship arrived to the moment the last Vrex vessel entered hyperspace." 4 minutes, the Luminari repeated, her energy form flickering with disbelief. "They destroyed the most powerful battle fleet in the galaxy in 4 minutes. What weapons were those?" The Sauroch commander demanded. "What technology allows such devastating power?" The Council's chief scientist, a Lithan named Praxtor, had been running analysis the entire time. His voice was shaken when he finally spoke. "Counselors, I have completed my preliminary analysis. The weapons were not advanced. They were shockingly primitive." "Explain," the Azuran counselor commanded. "The cylinders were electromagnetic accelerators, magnetic coils arranged in a specific pattern. When activated, they launched simple metal rods using magnetic force. The technology is basic, something any spacefaring civilization could build. The innovation was not in the weapons themselves? Then what?" the Ket-Tar general growled. "The innovation was in making them go that fast," Praxtor said. "And in using them at all. Counselors, no species in recorded history has weaponized relativistic kinetic projectiles. We all assumed that once we developed energy shields and energy weapons, kinetic weapons became obsolete." The Sauroch commander shook his head. "But the energy requirements to accelerate mass to such speeds are enormous, yes," Praxtor confirmed, "but apparently not impossible. The humans did not use energy weapons at all. They used physics. Pure kinetic energy, and at those speeds kinetic energy becomes more destructive than any bomb we have ever created." "How did the Vrex not detect the threat?" the Delpheri asked. "They did detect it," the young diplomat said, pulling up intercepted communications. The Vrex sensors identified the cylinders as simple metal containers. Their threat assessment algorithms dismissed them as debris or decoys. By the time their commander realized the danger, it was too late. The communication panel lit up. Captain Chen's face appeared on screen again. She looked exactly as she had 4 minutes ago, calm, professional, showing no sign of the incredible violence she had just unleashed. "Nexus Station, this is Defiance. Hostiles have been neutralized. Permission to dock for formal introductions?" The Azuran counselor stared at the human woman. This small being from a primitive world had just accomplished what the entire council fleet could not have done. She had saved billions of lives and shattered the most dangerous military threat in the galaxy, and she spoke as if she had simply completed a routine task. "Permission granted. Captain Chen," the counselor said. "Please proceed to Diplomatic Base 7. The council would very much like to meet you." "Understood. Defiance will dock in 15 minutes. Chen out." The screen went dark again. The Ket-Tar general sat down heavily in his chair. "I have commanded fleets for 200 years. I have studied military strategy at the finest academies in the galaxy. I have fought in 17 campaigns, and I have never, in all my years, seen anything like that. The Vrex were the most militaristic species in known space," the Sauroch commander added. "Their entire civilization was built on conquest. They had weapons that could crack planets, shields that could withstand sustained bombardment from entire fleets, and a human ship destroyed them with metal rods. Not just metal rods, Praxtor corrected gently. Metal rods moving at velocities we thought were impossible to achieve. The difference is everything. The Arborian elder spoke, his ancient voice heavy with thought. The question we must ask is not how they did this. The question is why none of us ever thought to do it ourselves. Because we are civilized, the luminary said quietly. We developed energy weapons because they are clean, efficient, and precise. We created shields to defend against energy weapons. Our warfare became standardized, predictable. We forgot that the universe has rules that cannot be shielded against. The humans did not forget, the Azuran counselor said. Or perhaps they never learned to fight the civilized way. Either possibility is disturbing. Or hopeful, the young diplomat suggested. They came when no one else would. They risked their ship and crew to answer our distress call. Whatever else they may be, they are allies. Allies with weapons we cannot comprehend, the Delphiri said. No, the Kettar general corrected, standing up and straightening his uniform. Allies with weapons we never imagined. There is a difference. We failed to think creatively. We failed to look beyond our assumptions about warfare. The humans did not. Then we must learn from them, the Azuran counselor said. We must understand how their species thinks, how they fight, and why they are so different from us. We must The station's proximity alarms interrupted her. The Defiance was approaching the docking bay. Come, the Arborian elder said, rising slowly from his seat. Let us meet these humans who fight with ancient weapons and save galaxies in 4 minutes. I suspect we are about to learn that there is far more to this species than fusion drives and metal rods. The council members filed out of the chamber, leaving behind the tactical displays still showing the debris field where the Vrex fleet had been. In the silence, the countdown timer remained frozen on screen. Elapsed time 4 minutes, 0 seconds. The galaxy would never be the same. The diplomatic bay was the most beautiful chamber in Nexus Station. Its walls were made of transparent aluminum, offering a perfect view of the twin stars that illuminated the system. Plants from 100 worlds grew in carefully maintained gardens, and the air was filled with a mixture of oxygen, nitrogen, and trace elements that allowed most species to breathe comfortably. The 7 council members stood in a semicircle, their finest diplomatic robes and ornaments displayed. Behind them stood honor guards from each species, though their weapons remained powered down as a sign of respect. The Defiance glided through the docking bay doors like a shark entering shallow water. Up close, the ship looked even less impressive than the tactical displays had suggested. Its hull was scarred and scorched. Carbon scoring marked places where micrometeors had struck. The name Defiance was painted on the side in simple white letters. With no artistic flourish or decorative elements, it was a working ship, built for function rather than beauty. The airlock hissed open, and Captain Sarah Chen stepped out, followed by 3 other humans. Chen wore her dark blue uniform with several medals pinned to her chest. Behind her walked an older man with gray hair and glasses, a young woman carrying a datapad, and a muscular man with a military bearing even more pronounced than Chen's. The humans were surprisingly small. The Kettar general stood nearly 3 meters tall, while Chen barely reached 2 meters. She looked fragile compared to the armored Sorok or the massive crystalline form of the Lithans, counselor, but everyone in that chamber had seen what her fragile species could. Duchen stopped 3 meters from the council and placed her right fist over her heart in a gesture of respect. Her crew did the same. Counselors, she said, her voice clear and formal. I am Captain Sarah Chen of the United Nations Starship Defiance. On behalf of humanity and the government of Earth, I bring greetings and friendship. The Azuran counselor stepped forward and bowed, a gesture that surprised everyone present. Council members did not bow. They were the pinnacle of galactic civilization. Captain Chen, the counselor said aloud, speaking rather than using telepathy as a sign of respect. You saved our station. You saved billions of lives. Words cannot express our gratitude. Please introduce your companions. Chen gestured to the older man. This is Dr. Marcus Webb, our chief diplomatic historian. He specializes in first contact protocols and cultural integration. Dr. Webb bowed slightly, pushing his glasses up his nose. Honored to meet you, counselors. This is Lieutenant Commander James Rodriguez, my tactical officer and military strategist. Rodriguez nodded sharply but did not smile. And this is Dr. Sarah Kim, our xenolinguistics expert and cultural liaison. The young woman smiled warmly. It is a privilege to be here. The Ketar general could not contain himself any longer. Captain Chen, we must know. How did you develop such devastating weapons? What technology allows you to accelerate mass to such incredible speeds? Chen's expression did not change. General, with respect, the weapons we used are not advanced. They are actually quite old by our standards. Humanity has been using kinetic weapons for thousands of years. We simply scaled them up. Scaled them up? The Sorok commander repeated. You speak as if creating relativistic projectiles is a minor adjustment. It is a matter of engineering, Rodriguez said, his voice gruff. We learned a long time ago that sometimes the simplest solution is the best solution. Why develop complex energy weapons when simple mass moving very fast accomplishes the same goal? Because energy weapons are civilized, the luminary protested. They are precise. They can be calibrated. They do not turn space into debris fields. Dr. Webb cleared his throat gently. Counselors, I believe there is a fundamental misunderstanding here. May I explain humanity's perspective on warfare? The Arborian elder gestured with a branch. Please, Doctor. We are eager to understand your species. Webb walked to the transparent wall and looked out at the stars. The council species, from what we understand, evolved on peaceful worlds or achieved unity early in their development. Your histories show cooperation, diplomacy, and eventual expansion into space as unified civilizations. This is correct, the Delphiri confirmed. Humanity's history is different, Webb continued. We evolved on a death world. Earth has extreme temperatures, devastating storms, earthquakes, volcanoes, floods, and predators that hunted us for millions of years. We survived by becoming adaptable, creative, and relentless. Many species face harsh environments, the Lithan's counselor said. Yes, but we also fought each other, Webb said quietly. For thousands of years, human nations, tribes, and kingdoms waged war on each other. We developed weapons not to fight aliens, but to fight other humans. We perfected the art of killing our own species. The silence that followed was uncomfortable. We are not proud of this history, Chen added, but it shaped us. Every technological era brought new weapons. When we discovered bronze, we made bronze swords. When we discovered gunpowder, we made cannons. When we split the atom, we made atomic bombs. And when we reached space, we looked at the physics of relativistic travel and asked ourselves a very human question. What question? The Azuran counselor asked. Can this be weaponized? Rodriguez took over the explanation. The council species developed energy shields, so you created energy weapons to counter them. You built stronger hulls, so you developed more powerful lasers. Your warfare became an arms race of technology competing against itself. You say that as if it is wrong, the Sorok commander said defensively. Not wrong, Rodriguez corrected. Predictable. You all fight the same way because you all think the same way. You look at a problem and develop sophisticated solutions. Humans look at a problem and think, what is the simplest, most brutal, most effective solution? The Vrex had shields that could withstand any energy weapon, Chen said. So we did not use energy weapons. We used mass. Pure kinetic force. Their shields could not stop it because their shields were never designed to stop something so simple. Dr. Kim spoke up, her voice gentle. Think of it this way, counselors. You are all master chess players. You understand every strategy, every countermove, every sophisticated tactic. Humans are the ones who flip the board over and set it on fire. But such thinking is barbaric, the luminary said. Is it barbaric to survive? Webb asked. Is it barbaric to protect innocent lives? Captain Chen could have fled. Her ship was alone against 50,000 enemies. Instead, she fought because you called for help. She used the weapons she had, weapons that worked, and she saved your station. The Ketar general studied Rodriguez carefully. You said humans weaponize everything. What else have you turned into weapons? Rodriguez's smile was not friendly. General, on Earth humans have weaponized diseases, weather patterns, sound waves, electromagnetic pulses, and even information itself. We have turned rocks into bullets, bullets into missiles, and missiles into relativistic kill vehicles. If it exists, a human somewhere has figured out how to make it deadly. This is terrifying, the Delphiri whispered. Yes, Chen agreed calmly. It is, but it is also why we won. The Vrex thought they were the most militaristic species in the galaxy. They conquered systems with overwhelming force and advanced technology. But they never fought a species that grew up fighting itself. They never faced an enemy that spent millennia learning how to kill efficiently. And now you offer us this knowledge? the Azuran counselor asked. Why? Chen met her eyes. Because there are worse things in the galaxy than the Vrex. We have studied the ancient records. We know about the species that exist beyond the borders of known space. The Vrex were just one threat. There will be others. And you believe your way of thinking can help us? The Arborian elder asked. I believe, Chen said carefully, that the galaxy needs to learn how to fight dirty. You have survived for 10,000 years through diplomacy and honor. That is admirable. But honor does not stop an enemy that has no honor. Rules mean nothing to those who refuse to follow them. Webb added, We are not suggesting you abandon your values. We are suggesting you expand your thinking. Learn to see warfare the way humans do. Not as a contest of equal forces following agreed-upon rules, but as a problem that requires any solution that works. Rodriguez nodded. In human military academies, we have a saying, the enemy gets a vote. You can plan the perfect strategy, deploy the perfect weapons, and follow the perfect doctrine. But if the enemy does something unexpected, all your plans become worthless. Humans learn to expect the unexpected because we constantly surprised each other. The council members looked at each other, communicating through glances and subtle gestures that spoke of shared uncertainty. Finally, the Azuran counselor spoke. Captain Chen, your species frightens us, but you also saved us. The council would like to propose a formal alliance. We will offer you membership in the council, and you will share your knowledge of warfare. Chen smiled for the first time since arriving. It was not a warm smile. Counselors, humanity accepts. Welcome to the human way of war. Just remember, the most important lesson we can teach you is this. Never fight fair, never fight honorably, and always, always win. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Nexus Station, as the event was now called throughout the galaxy. The Council had formally inducted humanity as the 8th member species, and the changes were already visible everywhere. Commander Rodriguez stood in the main training facility of the Council Military Academy, watching as a class of Sarok officer cadets attempted a simulation. The reptilian warriors were among the most disciplined soldiers in the galaxy, with centuries of military tradition behind them. They approached the exercise with textbook precision. The simulation was simple. A small council force was trapped on a moon base surrounded by superior enemy numbers. The cadets had to devise a rescue plan. The Sarok team leader reviewed the tactical situation with practiced efficiency. We will divide our forces into 3 groups. Alpha team will draw the enemy's attention with a frontal assault. Bravo team will flank from the eastern approach. Charlie team will extract the trapped personnel during the confusion. It was a solid plan, based on established military doctrine. It would probably work. Rodriguez stopped the simulation. Cadet, why are you attacking at all? He asked. The Sarok team leader looked confused. Sir, we must rescue our trapped personnel. The only way to do that is to break the enemy siege. That is one way, Rodriguez agreed. But humans would not do it that way. Can anyone tell me why? The classroom was silent. These cadets had studied warfare for years, but human thinking was still alien to them. Rodriguez pulled up the tactical map. Look at this moon. What do you see? I see the enemy positions, our trapped personnel, and the terrain, a Ketar cadet answered. You see what you expect to see? Rodriguez said. A human would see something else. This moon has no atmosphere. That means no air resistance. It also has very low gravity. And look here. He zoomed in on a section of the map. This crater is filled with ice, frozen water, and carbon dioxide. I do not understand the relevance, the team leader said. Rodriguez smiled. The enemy has surrounded the base because they expect you to come from space. They have positioned anti-aircraft weapons, shield generators, and troops in a perfect defensive perimeter. Breaking through that will cost lives. So do not break through it. Then what do? You land your ship on the far side of the moon, hidden from enemy sensors by the terrain. You use mining charges to excavate several tons of ice from this crater. You load that ice onto your ship and return to orbit. Then you calculate the trajectory needed for that ice to fall on the enemy positions. The cadets stared at him. Sir, a Lithan's cadet said carefully, ice is not a weapon. Ice moving at orbital velocity is a weapon, Rodriguez corrected. In low gravity with no atmosphere, you can launch ice chunks from the surface and have them impact the enemy positions with the force of bombs. The enemy will never see it coming because no civilized species thinks to use environmental resources as artillery. The Sorok team leader's tail thrashed with excitement. We could eliminate their anti-aircraft positions, create confusion and extract our personnel during the chaos, all without risking a single soldier in a frontal assault. Now you are thinking like a human, Rodriguez said. Across the station, Dr. Webb was conducting a very different kind of class. His students were diplomats and cultural specialists from every council species. The subject was human psychology and tactical thinking. The key to understanding humans, Webb explained, is understanding that we are persistence hunters. On Earth, humans were not the fastest or strongest predators, but we were the most patient. We would chase prey for hours, sometimes days, until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. How does this relate to warfare? An Azuran diplomat asked. It means humans do not think in terms of single battles, Webb said. We think in terms of campaigns. We are willing to lose battles if it helps us win the war. We are willing to sacrifice pieces if it leads to checkmate. He pulled up historical records from Earth. In one of our ancient wars, a nation called Russia faced invasion by the most powerful army in the world. The Russian forces could not win direct battles, so they did not fight them. Instead, they retreated, burning their own cities and farms as they went. The invading army marched deeper into Russia, winning every battle but finding no food, no shelter, and no rest. Winter came. The invaders starved and froze. Russia won without winning a single major battle. They destroyed their own resources? A Delpheri diplomat asked in horror. Their own cities? Yes, Webb said simply. Because they understood that losing cities but saving their army meant they could eventually win. The invaders thought they were winning because they captured territory. They failed to understand that territory means nothing if you cannot hold it. A Lithen's diplomat raised a crystalline hand. Dr. Webb, this seems unnecessarily cruel. Could they not have negotiated a peace? They did negotiate, Webb said. After they won. The lesson here is that humans understand something that many council species do not. Sometimes retreat is not surrender. Sometimes losing is part of winning. Sometimes the appearance of weakness is strength. The classroom was quiet as the students absorbed this uncomfortable truth. Meanwhile, Captain Chen had been promoted to admiral and now served as humanity's primary military liaison to the council. She stood in the Strategic Planning Center, reviewing reports from across the galaxy. The news was troubling but not unexpected. 3 more species have requested to join the council in the past month, her aide reported. They all cite the same reason. They want protection from potential Vrex retaliation and access to human tactical training. The Vrex are not retaliating, Chen said. Our intelligence suggests they are terrified. Their entire military doctrine has collapsed. They do not know how to fight an enemy that does not follow the rules they understand. Then why are species still worried? Chen pulled up a star chart. Because the Vrex were not the only threat. Look here. Raider attacks along the frontier have increased by 40%. Species that were previously intimidated by the Vrex are now testing the Council's borders. And here in the Outer Rim, we are detecting signs of another empire stirring. The Krill Collective has been quiet for a century, but our scouts report they are building ships again. So the Vrex were just the beginning. They were the test, Chen confirmed. The galaxy is watching to see if the Council will survive. If we show weakness, there will be more attacks. If we show strength, some will submit and others will challenge us. Her aide hesitated. Admiral, some council members are concerned about how quickly we are changing their military. The Arborian elder said that we are making the galaxy more violent, not less. Chen nodded slowly. He is not wrong. We are teaching the council to fight the way humans fight. That will lead to more effective warfare, which could mean more death if we are not careful. Then why do it? Because the alternative is extinction, Chen said bluntly. The galaxy is not a peaceful place. It only seemed peaceful because the council was so powerful that no one dared challenge them. The peace was an illusion built on unchallenged strength. The Vrex shattered that illusion. Now the council must earn their peace through actual strength, not assumed superiority. She turned to face her aide directly. The council survived for 10,000 years by being civilized. But civilization is a luxury that only exists when everyone agrees to be civilized. The moment someone refuses to play by the rules, you need to know how to win without rules. That is what we are teaching them. Back in the training facility, Rodriguez had moved on to a new lesson. This time, the simulation involved defending a convoy of civilian ships from raiders. The Ketar cadet leading the exercise deployed escort ships in a standard protective formation around the convoy. The raiders attacked and a fierce battle ensued. The cadets won, but 3 escort ships were destroyed. Rodriguez stopped the simulation again. Acceptable losses, the cadet said, anticipating the critique. We saved the convoy. Yes, Rodriguez agreed. But a human would have saved the convoy without losing any ships. How? Rodriguez restarted the simulation. Look at the raider ships. What do you notice? They are older models, less advanced than our escorts. Exactly, which means they are slower and have shorter weapons range. So why did you let them close to engagement distance? The cadet frowned. Because that is where battles happen. Battles happen where both sides agree to fight, Rodriguez said. What if you refuse to fight on their terms? Your convoy ships have faster engines than the raiders. You could accelerate to maximum speed and maintain distance. The raiders would chase you, burning fuel trying to catch up. Eventually they would have to give up or run out of fuel. But that is not fighting, a Sauroch cadet protested. That is running away. Rodriguez shook his head. No, that is winning without fighting. The goal is not to destroy the enemy. The goal is to complete your mission. If you can complete your mission without firing a shot, that is a perfect victory. The Sauroch cadet's scales rippled with confusion. But where is the honor in that? Honor is a luxury, Rodriguez said quietly. Dead soldiers do not have honor. They are just dead. The best victory is the one where you accomplish your objective and everyone on your side goes home alive. If the enemy thinks you are running away, let them think that. While they are laughing at your cowardice, you are completing your mission and saving lives. 5 years after the Battle of Nexus Station, Admiral Chen stood in the council chamber once again. But this time the atmosphere was different. The council members no longer looked at her with uncertainty or fear. They looked at her with respect earned through shared victories. The tactical display showed the aftermath of the Third Border War, as historians were already calling it. The Krill Collective had finally made their move, sending a massive invasion force into council space. They had expected to face the same civilized, predictable warfare that had defined galactic conflicts for thousands of years. They had been wrong. The war had lasted 3 months. The Krill lost 60% of their fleet. The Council lost 12%. The difference was not in technology or numbers. The difference was in thinking. The Krill have requested a formal peace summit, the Azuran Councilor announced. They wish to negotiate terms and establish trade relations. 5 years ago, they would have demanded our surrender, the Ketar general said. His voice held a note of satisfaction. Now they beg for peace. They do not beg, Chen corrected gently. They negotiate from a position of recognized weakness. There is a difference. We should accept their offer and establish fair terms. A humiliated enemy will seek revenge. A respected former enemy can become an ally. The Sauroch commander nodded. Admiral Chen is correct. The Krill fought bravely even when using inferior tactics. They deserve respect. The Arborian elder creaked as he shifted position. I must confess, Admiral, 5 years ago I feared that your human ways would make the galaxy more violent. Instead, we have fewer wars than before. Fewer wars, but more effective warfare, the Luminari added. Our enemies now think twice before attacking. They know that the Council no longer fights by predictable rules. Chen smiled slightly. The greatest weapon is the one you never have to use. When your enemies know you can defeat them decisively, they choose diplomacy instead of war. This is something humans learned long ago. We called it deterrence. Still, the Delphiri said, her voice thoughtful, I worry about what we have become. We use tactics that would have horrified us 5 years ago. We ambush enemies, we use psychological warfare. We exploit every weakness we can find. Are we still the same council that once prided itself on honor and civilization? The chamber fell silent. It was a question they had all asked themselves at some point. Chen stood and walked to the transparent wall, looking out at the stars. Counselor, may I tell you about a human concept called the civilization paradox? Please, the Delphiri said. Humans learned that the most civilized societies are those that have the capacity for extreme violence, but choose not to use it. A civilization that cannot fight is not peaceful. It is simply waiting to be conquered. A civilization that can fight but chooses peace is truly civilized. She turned to face the council. 5 years ago, the council was peaceful because no one had seriously challenged you in thousands of years. You had forgotten how to fight effectively. When the Vrex came, you were helpless. That is not civilization. That is naivety. And now? The Arborian elder asked. Now you can fight, Chen said simply. You have the knowledge, the tactics, and the willingness to do what is necessary to survive. But look at your actions. You did not exterminate the Vrex when you had the chance. You did not enslave the Krill. You fought to defend yourselves, and when your enemies surrendered, you offered them peace and dignity. That is true civilization. The Lithin's counselor hummed thoughtfully. So we have become more dangerous in order to remain civilized? Exactly, Chen confirmed. Peace is not the absence of the capacity for violence. Peace is the choice not to use that capacity except when necessary. Rodriguez entered the chamber, his uniform showing new decorations from recent campaigns. Counselors, Admiral, we have received concerning news from our deep space reconnaissance. What is it? Chen asked. We detected a fleet at the edge of explored space. Unknown configuration, unknown species. Estimated strength is over 100,000 vessels. The number hung in the air like a physical weight. 100,000? The Sauroch commander repeated. That is larger than any fleet in recorded history. They are headed toward Council space, Rodriguez continued. At current speed, they will reach the border in 6 months. Do we know their intentions? The Azuran counselor asked. No. They have not responded to any communication attempts, but their formation suggests military organization, not exploration or trade. The Ketar general stood. Then we must prepare. How many ships can we mobilize? The Council fleet now numbers 40,000 vessels, Rodriguez reported. Human forces can contribute another 5,000. We are still outnumbered 2-1. Those are better odds than we had against the Vrex, Chen said calmly. And we are not the same council that faced the Vrex. We have learned. We have adapted. We have become unpredictable. But can we win? The luminary asked. Chen met her gaze. Counselor, 5 years ago you asked me how humans fight. We fight with every advantage we can create. We fight with tactics that our enemies do not expect. We fight with the understanding that war is not about honor. It is about survival. And most importantly, we fight together. She addressed the entire council. This unknown fleet is the largest threat we have ever faced. But they do not know about us. They do not know about relativistic weapons. They do not know about unconventional tactics. They do not know that the council is no longer a collection of civilized species playing at warfare. We have become something new. What are we? The Delphari asked quietly. We are the Council Human Alliance, Chen said. We combine the wisdom and knowledge of ancient species with the tactical creativity of humanity. We have the technology of the oldest civilizations and the vicious survival instinct of a young species that grew up fighting itself. That combination makes us the most dangerous force in the galaxy. Rodriguez pulled up strategic projections. We have 6 months to prepare. I recommend we use human asymmetric warfare doctrine. We will not meet them in open battle. We will ambush them. Harass them, make them question every decision. We will use their size against them. Our large fleets are harder to coordinate and easier to confuse. We will also employ psychological warfare, Dr. Webb added, entering the chamber. We will broadcast our victory against the Vrex. We will show them what happens to species that attack the Council. We will make them afraid before they even reach our borders. And if they still attack? The Arborian elder asked. Then we show them why fear was the appropriate response, Chen said coldly. The months that followed were a blur of preparation. Every shipyard in Council space worked around the clock. New weapons were developed, combining Council technology with human tactical thinking. Asteroid fields were seeded with hidden weapon platforms. Empty systems were turned into trap zones. But the most important preparation was mental. The Council species learned to think like humans. They learned to look at every situation and ask not, what is the honorable response? But what is the effective response? When the unknown fleet finally arrived at the Council border, they found something unexpected. Instead of defensive formations and prepared battle lines, they found empty space. The Council fleet was nowhere to be seen. The unknown fleet's commander sent a message, translated by advanced linguistics programs. Council species, you will surrender all territory and resources. Resistance is futile. You cannot hide from us. Chen's response was broadcast across every frequency. You are correct. We cannot hide from you. But you should have asked yourselves a different question. Why would we want to? The unknown fleet advanced cautiously into what appeared to be undefended space. They found no resistance, no patrols, no defenses. They found nothing at all, until they reached the coordinates that Rodriguez had designated Target Zone Alpha. The empty space around them suddenly came alive. What they had thought were asteroids were actually weapon platforms. What they had thought were debris fields were actually mines, and what they had thought was an easy conquest became a nightmare. The Council fleet emerged from hidden positions in the planet's shadow, behind moons, within gas clouds. They did not charge forward in heroic formation. They struck from every direction at once, using tactics that made no sense to an enemy expecting conventional warfare. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, the unknown fleet was retreating at maximum speed, leaving behind 40,000 destroyed vessels and a message promising they would never return. The Council had lost 3,000 ships. In any previous war, that would have been considered a devastating loss. By human standards, it was an overwhelming victory. Aboard the command ship, Chen watched the enemy flee. Rodriguez stood beside her, his expression satisfied. "They never expected us," he said. "No one ever does," Chen replied. "That is why we win." Back on Nexus Station, a new monument was being constructed. It stood beside the preserved wreck of the original Defiance, which had been kept as a museum ship. The monument was a simple metal cylinder mounted on a pedestal. The plaque beneath it read, "In memory of the 4 minutes that changed the galaxy. Let no species ever again mistake simplicity for weakness, or civilization for helplessness." Children from a dozen different species played in the gardens around the monument, their games mixing human strategy with alien creativity.